Welcome to another episode of Wild and Well. Today I'm talking with Jason Reid, who is the founder of Tell My Story, about we're going to be talking about teenage mental health and so much more. And if you have younger kids, keep listening here because a lot of what we're talking about pertains to young kids and how that influences them as they get older. So welcome, Jason. Thank you so much for coming on today to talk to us. But before we get into everything that you're doing and creating, can you tell us one thing that you've done today to take care of yourself?
Today. I think, I woke up slowly. My alarm went off at 5. I took a good 15 minutes before I got out of bed and just kind of centered myself and, a little bit of gratitude for where I am and what I have in life. And then I got started my day. So,
Well, it's a beautiful way to start. You laugh, but that's amazing.
yeah.
So can you share about yourself, what it is you do, and if we can get into the origin story of how you started Tell My Story, like what inspired you to start this?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm a different person now than I was 8 years ago. Um, So I am an entrepreneur. I own construction businesses and other businesses across the country with my partners. We employ a few thousand people, and I've been at that for, 37 years, and we've done quite well, and it's been a good life. I've married, 4 kids, and up until you know March 2018, I kind of went off my life and I just worked and I spent time with my family and didn't think about giving back much to the world. Thought I would do that after I retired. I'd make my money and maybe do something nice after that. In March 2018, though, my son, Ryan, who had just turned 14, took his own life. And sorry.
No.
And that changed everything completely. So we didn't see it coming. Mental health wasn't something we ever talked about because we didn't think we had to. We assumed this kids were all great. We all had a great relationship. We hung out together. Um, Ryan and I spent a lot of time together. He was grumpy, but he was the youngest of 4, and I thought he was the least grumpy of all my kids. So never thought to even ask where his mental health was. And he hid it from us. That came out in some notes and things afterwards. He always was the life of the party and a happy-go-lucky kid, and it shocked everybody. Um, but when you look back on it, there were some signs that he was withdrawn a little bit more. Um, he had Crohn's disease, so he was going through some, had to have infusions every 6 weeks, and that was hard on him. And he had changed. I just didn't take the signs as being what they were. So the origin of Tell My Story was probably, soon after we got back and we took him off life support. I realized I wanted to make a difference in the world and try to help and have parents see what I missed. And I was going through his drawers in his room, looking for clues. And I came across a note that said, "Here's my username and passwords, and tell my story." Sorry. It's funny. No matter how many times I tell this, I still choke up at the beginning of these things. So we did a movie called Tell My Story. I actually did, I did a couple of TEDx talks I did a gold cast. I did the movie Tell My Story with the mission of trying to make a difference in the world. In fact, the original organization that I started was called chooselife.org, which I was amazed I was able to get and buy the domain for. And they wanted $10,000 for it. I'm like, well, that's a lot of money, but it's what a great name. And later someone said to me, that's the old anti-abortion stuff. And I'm like, oh shoot. And then Roe versus Wade got overturned, and I changed the whole organization over to Tell My Story. That was just kind of a funny side story to it. So what I've been doing for the last 7 years, or I guess close to 8 now, is trying to make a difference in the world, help parents understand what they need to do to own their kids' mental health like they own their physical health. And we've done that through the movie Tell My Story. We did another movie called What I Wish My Parents Knew. We have a third movie called Shift that just came out 2 weeks ago. And What I Wish My Parents Knew is a program for schools, and Shift is a program for schools. Tell My Story is actually up on Amazon Prime. We have the Tell My Story card deck that starts conversations with you and your kids, put together by some mental health professionals in my team. And this is a great way to sit down with your kids and start a conversation. We have 2 albums that came out with BMG Music, Songs for the Drive Home, where you can sit in the car and listen to music with your kids that talk about mental health and help spark conversations. And that's what we've been up to so far. It's been a very busy 7 years. I have a whole team of people who work with me to put this into schools and put this into different programs in churches and places that people gather.
And what have you learned about mental health in kids and teenagers while creating these films and throughout your own incredibly difficult, that minimizes it, but your journey that you've been on yourself with your son?
I learned a lot. I learned how big of a problem this really is that I never knew. And there's a lot of parents like me. There's a lot of parents still like me that, it's just like, it's somebody else's problem, right? It's going to be that, it's always going to be, we think it's that kid who's withdrawn in the corner, doesn't talk to anybody. That's the one who's a problem or a potential problem. And the reality, that's just not true. It's the high school cheerleader. It's the high school quarterback. It's the class clown. It's the people you don't expect are still struggling. It's Robin Williams, right? Like we don't. It's such an internal battle for people that they're afraid to talk about. That it doesn't just hit one walk of life. It's not rich kids or poor kids. It's every kid, and it's not just kids, it's adults. And when you take a look at it, the chance of your son or daughter or someone dying of suicide, even though we probably all know of somebody, the chance of it happening to you is probably not that great, right? To be in my situation. However, I don't like to talk about suicide that much because the reality is 40% of kids these days, depending on where you want to get your stats, have suffered from some kind of depression or anxiety this last year that was very serious. So the chance of your family members, your friends, your cousins, yourself, your spouses going through this is really a large percentage of people. And depression and anxiety is the beginning and can slide into something much worse. So this is a conversation we all have to have. And I think we're doing a better job of having it, but a lot of us still are not paying attention to things the way I think we need to. And that's why I like to talk about, owning your kid's mental health versus, or like you own your kid's physical health. And my example for that would be, if your son or daughter comes home, or it's Monday morning, let's put it that way. It's Monday morning, they come into your room and they go, I'm sick, I don't want to go to school. We automatically go, you're lying. And then we go, but wait a second, you're not. And they say, what's wrong with you? Well, I got a stomach ache. Really, you got a stomach ache again? Okay. And then we check, and oh, wait, they got a fever. Well, wait a second, they probably do have a stomach ache. Where's it hurt? Oh, wow. Okay, that's serious. Let me get you to the doctor. We own their physical health. We're going to take care of them. Now, if you change that around, if someone comes in, talk to your son or daughter comes and talk to you, says, I just lost my boyfriend broke off with me, and I'm devastated, and I don't know what to do, and I don't want to be here anymore. We go, oh, well, that's crazy. Don't. That's You're the most beautiful girl in the world, and he's a nutcase, and there's so many better guys than him. I never liked him anyway. And we don't actually lean in to try and help them and understand how they feel, and understand that might be very serious. We go into fix it mode, which isn't what they want to hear. And that's the kind of example I give, because we don't do it the same way. And the challenge is there's just not enough therapists and doctors and psychiatrists and psychologists and hospitals out there to deal with the mental health issues that exist. And a lot of people don't have the medical coverage to get a therapist or to go to a doctor, or they go to the emergency room and it's jam packed with so many people that they can't get anybody in there. So what I like to tell people is that, we have to be able to own our kids' mental health. We have to be able to have the conversations, and we have to listen. That makes sense so far?
Yeah, I think listening is such a key part of it, isn't it? Because there's so many things that come to mind when you're speaking there, but that listening is so key. And we can just jump to being reactive or trying to convince our kids, like you were using in that example of like, no, you're amazing. That person isn't worth it. Like you're silly to think that way. And I think also a lot of it has to do with parents not feeling comfortable in their own emotions. So how can they be able to be there for the kids if they're feeling big things?
It's absolutely right. It's like, a lot of us have come in, we've had a long day, and maybe we've got trouble at work, and maybe we're being bullied at work, or maybe we just feel like we're going to lose our jobs. We're worried about everything from AI to the economy to being able to pay the bills. And we come home and we go, how are you doing? And our child says, I'm fine. We go, oh, good, great. Check that off the list. I'm glad you're fine, because I'm not. And we go bury ourselves in our phone.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what's come down to these days. The other thing is, a lot of parents really don't recognize what depression and anxiety is, because they've never had it. Like, to this day, I've never been depressed. I get anxiety if I'm going to miss a flight, but that's like, that's not real anxiety, right? That's not what people deal with. It's debilitating. So I don't even know what any of it means. And I tried to come up with an analogy to help people understand it. And the best I can come up with is this: is, I live in Southern California, and for the most days I'll look outside, there's not a cloud in the sky. Now, if I was sitting there looking at the sky with someone who's depressed or Ryan, they may see only clouds. And there's absolutely nothing I can do to convince them there's no clouds in the sky. And the minute I try to convince them there's no clouds in the sky, they're going to shut down and not listen to me. So what do you do when someone sees only clouds in the sky? Well, you have to ask them about their clouds. Tell me about your clouds. What do they look like? Are they there all the time? Excuse me. Do they come and go? How do they make you feel?
Yeah, you're so right because otherwise we are invalidating what their experience is by saying, "Oh, look at that. It's a bright sunny day. There are no clouds." That's
Yeah.
crazy that you're saying clouds. So what sort of conversations do you recommend that parents have? I absolutely love that you have this card deck. I didn't realize that you guys had that. I think that's so helpful because sometimes it is really hard to start those conversations. Parents don't know where to start. And even if they do know, they're maybe too scared or avoidant to start them. So I think that is such a easy, practical way to start them. But what are some starting places for conversations that parents can have with younger kids or with teenagers?
Well, I think it's, before we even dive into what can you talk about, I think we have to talk about when can you talk about it,
Mm,
and when's the right time to do it, and then what's the right setting to do it. the last thing I would ever want anybody to do tonight is to listen to this podcast and then burst into your kid's room and say, we got to talk. Because that's the last thing they want. That room, that space is the only little safe space they have on the planet. And that's why they yell and scream at you and tell you to leave the room, because they just need some alone time and they want to have it there. They don't want you barging into their room and talking to them. So when do they want to talk to you? Well, they want to talk to you when they're comfortable, they feel at ease, and they don't feel threatened. And whether we recognize it or not, kids feel threatened when we talk to them like adults. And what do I mean by that? They want to be treated like adults, but they don't want to be treated like adults. For example, if I'm talking to you right now, I'm going to look you in the eyes. Now we're on Zoom, so it's kind of hard, but I'm going to look you in the eyes directly, and we're going to have a conversation. And as adults, that means I'm listening to you, and you're listening to me, and we get each other, and that's what adults do, right? If you have that conversation with your kids staring right into their eyes, you're intimidating the crap out of them. You're scaring them to death. And you can, no, I'm not another parent. I love them. No, you're scaring them. If they have any bit of anxiety or depression, you're scaring the crap out of them. You're making them totally uncomfortable. So you've got to think about how you can talk to them. Analogy I like to use is like, I grew up Catholic, unfortunately. And sorry if you are, but I grew up Catholic and, I'm recovering now. But, going to confession, like, why do they have confessionals set up the way they do? If you're not Catholic, you've seen it in the movie, right? Where you've got the room you walk in, the priest is already there. They slide a little thing over. You look forward. You don't look at the priest. He looks forward, and you tell all your sins, and he never sees your face, and you hope he doesn't remember who you are. But that way, you're openly sharing your stuff without having to look anybody in the eyes. So, what's the best way you can create that with your kids? Well, in the car, you ever notice how they're more comfortable talking to you in the car than they are when you're at home staring them in the face? Well, the reason for that is that they know you can't stare at them in the eyes, and they can just talk to you because you got to drop. You're like, what'd you say? What'd you say? Right? They're like, ha ha ha, I got you. You can't look at me. Or going for a walk, you're looking forward. They just need to have that little bit of space, that little bit of, I can talk to you without really looking at you. Now, sometimes kids are different. They want to look at you, but most of them do not want to look you in the eyes when they're having a serious conversation. It's hard for them. And when do they want to have that conversation? When it's inconvenient for you, right?
Yeah, it's so true. I find for my kids, I lie down with them at nighttime and it's dark, and that's when one of them falls asleep immediately. But the other one, they always start talking because it's dark, it's quiet, we can't see each other. And so things start coming up from his day, and
Yeah.
it's a safe place for, like, he feels safe because he's being cuddled, and it's a, his bed is a safe place. Yeah. Absolutely. But I think a lot of people are that way, even adults. Like, even as a therapist, I often want to have my sessions walking because people
Yeah.
are moving, they're out in nature, their perspective can shift, and it isn't as intense as sitting together quietly in a room staring at each other. Like, that's really full on for a lot of people, especially
And
kids.
especially kids. I think when you're doing an activity, like
Yeah.
you said, going for a walk, maybe you're going fishing, you're playing golf, you're shooting hoops, you're cooking something. That's when they'll open up a little bit more. But you can't force it, right? If they don't want to talk to you, they're not going to talk to you. And when they're ready to talk to you, you have to be willing to drop what you're doing and have the conversation. I mean, there are plenty of times, where Ryan probably came up to my office and said, "Hey, Dad," I said, "Hey, let me finish this, and I'll come down and talk to you." And I don't know, I always did it, never forgot about him. But many times I went back down. He said, "No, it's okay, I got it."
Mm.
Right? So, and I'm not saying drop everything all the time, but just be aware that the important conversations don't come up when you want them to. And you can't really trigger them, right? You can't sit down and say, okay, I've got a list of, I'm going to send you an agenda. I want you to read
If only parenting was so easy.
it. um, but we've done things to try and help spurt. The two albums are, the first one's great for kids. Second one's more for adults. And the card deck gives you just kind of, it's a game. Like you just sit there and say, tell me a time you're proud of yourself. And questions like that. And it goes back and forth and you share. And there's past cards, so they don't want to, if they don't want to answer the question, they don't have to. Kids love it. I mean, and adults love it. It's funny, like in my production company, I got a call from my partner's mother. And she goes, and this was a couple of years ago when the deck first came out, she goes, I want to let you know something. I know my 55-year-old son better than I'd ever had now because of that card deck. So just starting conversations. And it's hard for people to start conversations. It's hard for people to start deep conversations because we're very surface level. How's the weather? How are you doing? Okay, good. We don't go very deep these days. And I think it's a better practice if we all try to.
Yeah, and I think having something like the questions already written in a card deck make it so much easier to access because it's not you forcing that question upon somebody. It just happens to be the card that was picked. So that
Yeah.
brings down that intensity, doesn't it?
Yeah, we've watched kids play it before. I've also watched them stack the deck with the cards they want. It's kind of funny.
Mm.
But if we bring this down to like, I can't give you exactly how to start a conversation. I wish I could. We have ideas, but it's more important, like I was talking about the framework, how and when, and knowing when to push. And the biggest thing is not to try and fix it, right? We got to, like, this is hard for most people. It's very hard for me. I spend my days with, people calling me from all over the place and different companies they work with. And they don't call me with good, good stuff. They call me that I have a problem. Every time my phone rings, it's a problem. And they're calling me because they want me to fix the problem or give them advice on how to fix the problem. So that's my day, right? So when we get home as adults who are busy, and that's our day, then our kids come to us with, I'm angry at this right now, and we'll read it. We go to fixing mode. Okay, here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna go talk to this person tomorrow. You're gonna say this, this, and this. You're gonna go talk to the teacher, say this. They don't want any of that. They just want to be heard. Which, by the way, I've been married for 33 years and I still haven't figured that out. But sometimes my wife just wants to be heard. Most of the time, she just wants to be heard. So,
And what do you do as somebody who's really well practiced at fixing the situation? What do you do in those moments to remind yourself they just want to be heard? Is it just telling yourself that? Is it just taking a breath and saying, I know my kid just wants to be heard here. I'm going to listen? Is it that reminder, or is there something else that you do?
you just got to take a breath before we just go boom, 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 boom. Just take a breath before you answer. Take a breath before you answer. People may not watch this, but there's a lot of stuff's going on with AI these days, and Sam Altman is the CEO of OpenAI. If you ever watch Sam Altman in an interview, someone will ask a question, and he has such a long pause that sometimes you think that the thing paused or something, but he's thinking very clearly about his answer before he answers. And most of us don't do that. Most of us are barely waiting for that last word to come out of someone's mouth so we can start talking again. And we want to fix things. And by the way, it's not, I want to fix things for my wife and kids because I love them. None of us want to see our kids in pain. So it comes from a good place. It's just not what they want. It's not what they need. They need you to listen and then say, hey, do you want my advice? If you want my advice, I'm happy to give you some. And I shifted that way with my adult kids, last 5, 6 years, and it's made our relationship a lot better. And the interesting thing is, I think they come to me more for advice now because now they want it, as opposed to me throwing it at them, but now they're asking for it. So it actually shifts things. But we should talk about younger kids because I know your audience skews a little younger. And people may be looking at this going, well, my kids are not there yet, so that's okay. We'll deal with that when they're 12, 13, 14 years of age. And I'll just give you something to think about. When I started talking to kids, and I started asking them, when do you first have these feelings of of depression and anxiety, of not feeling like you fit in? The more overwhelming answers I got were when they were 6 and 7 years old, they started feeling this way. If you go to tellmystory.org and you see the trailer for What I Wish My Parents Knew, the first young girl who shows up on that film is talking about a story that she wanted to die when she was 7. And she tried and she attempted. It's kids these days are really not kids like we were. Like, I'm 57, 58 now, I guess. When I look back in my life when I was 58, think about this for a second. When the phone rang and I was 14 or I was 12, it was attached to the wall, right? And my father answered it. And then he'd hand it to me and stand there. Well, I finally said, look, I'll see you at school tomorrow. We hang up. That was life for me at 58, right? At 12, 14 years of age. I didn't know what was going on in the world. I grew up in Canada. There were 2 TV stations, 3 TV stations max, right? You come home and you watch Gilligan's Island, which you probably don't even know about, and shows like Get Smart, and then you go outside and you play. And you come back in for dinner, and you sit down with your family, you have dinner. I didn't watch the news, right? Why was I going to watch the news? My dad watched the news. And it was only on once a day for a half hour, an hour anyways. And I didn't read the newspaper unless I was reading the comics. I had no clue what was going on in the world back then. And there was a lot going on in the world, I guess, but I didn't pay attention to it. And I was bullied at school. I was bullied. I was easily picked on. I was a small, sickly child who was shy. But my bully stayed at school. When I came home, I was safe. Now you fast forward to where we are today, right? At 7 years of age, these kids aren't 7 like I was 7, or you were 7. These kids are much more worldly at 7 because they have access to computers, they have access to the internet, they have access to whatever they want to have access to. And I'm not saying stop them from having access. I'm saying realize they do have access. You're not going to be able to hide the fact. They're going to go to school and somebody's going to have a cell phone. Somebody's going to show them something that you wish they never saw. They're going to go to some friend's house. They're going to play a video game that you don't want them to play. They know, what was going on in Israel and Gaza and what's still going on in Israel and Gaza. They know that there's wars in Ukraine and Russia. They're worried because they hear their friends talking about, will the world end, or are we going to go to World War III? Am I going to have to go fight in a war? You don't think your kids at that age are having these conversations, but some of them are. Now, if you've kept them really close in a little bubble and you're homeschooling them, they don't see anybody else, maybe that's okay. Maybe they don't see any of that. But if they're in the normal world, they're going to see that kind of stuff. And their little brains are the same as mine was at 7 or 8 years of age. We haven't changed that much. They're just dealing with a lot more stuff, a lot more pressure. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's so true. It makes you think about screens and just the access that kids have, whether it's at home, at school, or through friends, and what that's bringing into their lives. And like you say, like their brains are the same as what your brain or my brain was at 7. Their brains haven't changed. They haven't been developed to better cope with that overwhelm. And they don't understand that that's over there and that's not here. When you hear something and it's scary, that affects your brain just as if that war is happening right now for you.
Yeah. And by the way, if they get through the wars, they're being told that don't worry because in 20 years the world's going to be underwater and all going to be dead. So how do you cope as a 7 or 8 year old kid? And then they're bullies if they have screens and they have phones, and I wouldn't recommend an 8 year old having a phone, but um, they're being bullied at home because anybody now, bullies used to be big people who were just picking on people. Well, now it could be anybody with a keyboard, as we all know. So they're just dealing with so much more than I was or you were when you were younger. So yeah, it's a lot for them, and some handle it just fine. I mean, some are just no issues at all, right? But some don't.
And what are some of the signs that parents should look out for in their children that might be like subtle ways to indicate that they are struggling?
It's. I wish it was really simple. So just look for this, and then you're right. You're the doctor. It's just not that simple, right? But it's changes in their personality, right? They were happy-go-lucky, now they're not. Sloppiness. They used to make their beds, brush their teeth, do all those things, and now you got to remind them on a regular basis. They don't seem to care anymore. It's not getting their homework done, not caring if they do it, just a lack of caring about life in general, not hanging out with their friends, slowing down, hanging out with their friends, more time at home. I used, Ryan went from wanting to see his friends all the time to not wanting to see his friends all much. And I thought, well, it's just, you're turning 14. I guess this is just how that whole change happens. But no, it was more than that. Having more secrets than you'd want them to have and not opening up to you is not a good thing. But I haven't necessarily been to pinpoint, well, if you see this one thing happen, that's exactly what caused it. You just have to have open conversations. Your kids have to feel like they can tell you anything and you're not going to lose your temper.
And that's a hard one, and that starts when they're young. Like my kids are 6 and 8, and I know for years, like they've been telling me things, and sometimes they'll say, "Oh, I don't want to tell you this because you might get mad." And it's so hard because as your parent, you do care about things, and but it's nice sometimes if they do preface with that, so then you can check yourself, and it does remind you, okay, I don't want to be reactive. I want to be a safe space for them to tell me things. So we
Yeah.
can learn this at a young age, or like when our kids are young. So when they're teens, they can tell us bigger things.
Yeah, I think it's, I'm not saying there shouldn't be consequences, but they should feel like they can tell you things. I mean, and look, I yelled at my kids. I'm absolutely yelled at my kids. I never hit them, which is a step up from my father. But I did yell at them. Now, did that harm them in any way? No, they're all really well-adjusted kids. But did that mean that they weren't willing to share some things with me because they thought I might fly off the handle? Probably. And I thought I was doing the right thing because when they turned 16 or 17, I'm like, just know this, that if you end up drinking some night and you have the car, just call me. Nothing bad will happen. And I did that. That was great. We never had any problems. Some parents don't even want to do that, right? They're like, you can't drink and drive, and you're just gonna be in so much trouble if that ever happens. And that's why we have kids have accidents, right? Because they're trying to hide it from their parents. Now I look at that, go, well, what could I have done earlier in life? And said, you can tell me anything. There won't be any consequences. I don't think I did that. Or there won't be any, you won't get in trouble. I won't yell at you. Can't guarantee you there won't be a consequence, but you tell me. The other thing, we've gotten away from the whole idea of sitting around the dinner table and having conversations. And that's a big thing that we always did in our family. One of the things I think we did right is when I wasn't traveling, we had dinner together as a family all the time. And we would push the conversations out of the table and just have fun with it and just laugh. And everybody got to tell a story, and everybody, we tried to figure out who had the funniest story of the night, and just creating that family bonding together. And these days it's gotten so much where people are so busy, and their kids have so many activities, and they don't really sit down and have dinner together. They don't have that family bonding time like they used to. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, dinners are so important. There is some research on it to show that it is so useful for kids' mental health if they have regular dinners. And regular dinners doesn't have to even be every night, but to have that
Yeah.
consistency that you do it at least like once a week or twice a week. And obviously more is better with that, but life does happen. But even in the world that I work in with picky eating with kids, it helps so much if you can just have family dinners and you don't even have to worry about the food that your kids are eating, but it's just about sitting down and bonding and being there together, sharing the meal. It's such a simple thing, but it's not necessarily easy for people. But I think it's a habit that we've lost that we really do need to bring back as a collective.
Well, and I think we put, it's funny, like, I think people put too much pressure on, you have to eat what I cooked. And family dinner becomes this fight with the picky eater. And everybody, it ruins the dinner for everybody, right? Because you're sitting there going, you have to eat your food and you have to eat this because your mother made it and blah, 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 blah. And then everybody's just quiet and doesn't talk to each other. And everybody hates dinners, right? As opposed to, the one thing I think we did right is that, like, I don't care what you eat. Here's what I cooked. And if you don't want that, you can cook yourself whatever you want, but I'm not cooking it for you. And then it became, everybody enjoyed dinner because now they're all having what they want. And yes, my kids ate a lot of chicken nuggets because that's all they wanted. But you know what? They're all adults now. They eat fine, and they they weren't malnourished. They were fine. So just
Yeah,
don't.
and there's often more to those meals than what the food is. Even though, like, I advocate for healthy food, I think it is, meals are about so much more than that. That is such a tiny piece of it. It's actually about that connection.
You can ruin the family culture by pushing too much on healthy food, I think. And I'm not saying you shouldn't eat healthy. I'm saying we can put too much emphasis on healthy food over family bonding time.
Yeah. Yeah, really, when it comes to eating or any aspect of parenting, it starts with that connection to your child, the attachment that they have, the safety that they feel with you, and everything else is easier, whether it's having those hard conversations or it's having your kid try the peas on their plate, anything.
And the other stuff that we just came out with a new movie called Shift, where I interviewed, I think it was 13 kids that all had something they were excited about in their lives, right? It's their sport, it's their activity, it's their musical theater, it's their whatever it might be, right? Their business they started. And they all had mental health issues, but they leaned into something they were excited about. And that helped bring them up out of their challenges. And it's such a positive film because it's showing these kids that, they did struggle. They talk about struggling, but they go, yeah, but now I have something to get up for every morning and focus on. And I think it's so important, even for adults, when adults watch this film, some of them cry and go, we've had that experience where someone kind of broke down, but I forgot how important it was to have something in my life that I care about other than working with my family, to have that hobby, that interest, right? And the Shift movie is just trying to encourage everybody and parents to help kids find the thing that makes them happy outside of school.
And how do you see that kids find that, or adults or teenagers find that? Because sometimes, like, it's so great when we have that purpose and we're excited about something, whether it's like a side hustle or a hobby or whatever it is. But oftentimes, there's a lot of people that don't have that and they don't even know where
Sure.
to begin to find that. So, what do you suggest there?
You know, I suggest just opening your mind to what's out there, trying things, trying, like, I always told my kids, I don't care. You can change. Like, you started playing soccer, you decide after one season of soccer you don't like soccer anymore. Great. You want to go be an artist, go be an artist. You don't like being an artist, go do something else. But just try things until you find that one thing that you really love. Because I don't think you know until you try a whole bunch of different things. You don't know what you're going. I'm going to play football as my dad played football. Okay, well, you play football. Do you love football, or are you playing football because your dad played football? All right. You're playing baseball because you're good at it, but do you like it? Is that the thing you love getting up in the morning for? Is that what, like, you wake up in the morning, you go, I can't wait to be able to go to this? I mean, I wish everybody had those things. Now, I have way too many hobbies, way too many interests, because I just try so many different things. But it's wonderful, right? Because I have a very busy business life and family life, but I have a very busy personal agenda, things I want to go do and have fun doing that get me out of bed and I start thinking about. And I think I feel bad for people who don't. I watch my own father, retire at 65 and have no hobbies and just go right downhill because he had no hobbies. And that's not the podcast for it, but there's a lot of guys who are retiring at 65 and have nothing to do because they've never done anything else. And it's sad. I look at them and I talk to them like, guys, you gotta figure out something here to do. But we all need that. I think that's a challenge with our mental health, is when we just do what we think we're supposed to do that doesn't bring us joy. For most people, or a lot of people, work does not bring them joy. Your work, I imagine, brings you joy. That's why I do. My work brings me joy. But there's a lot of people just go to work because it goes to work. And then they're raising their kids. And that's joy, but not always joy, as we know. Right? And marriages aren't always joyful all the time. So I think it's so important for everybody to find that thing that they just want to do.
So you have a number of documentaries and you've mentioned several of them here. What are you working on now and what do you want to be working on in the future with these? Like what's important for us to know when it comes to mental health and teenagers, and what are you
Well,
diving into?
so my next project is, I think, probably the most important project I've done so far. You know, we're growing up. We're in the middle of a world right now where AI is becoming the hottest conversation and the most important thing, and it's going to change everything that we know today. And I spent a lot of time in the last year studying, reading, listening, and trying to understand where it's going, because I own companies and I've got kids and all this other stuff that's going on. And so my next film is going to be called Artificial Kids: Raising Children in the World of AI. And I'll tell you why I think it's so important. Um, People believe that social media was the start of all the bad stuff that happened around around our mental health and our kids' mental health. And I agree, right? And if you take a look at the movie The Social Dilemma, they went back 15 years later and talked about all the stuff they realized or wish they had done differently to stop this from being stop it from being what it is. And when I look at AI right now, I think this will be a worse moment for us in mental health than what we're dealing with social media and everything else in the world. And I'll tell you why. Um, we're a species as human beings, and our kids are very much that way, that they want to take the easy way out. They want to click the easy button, as most of us do in life. And when you don't have to be pushed to actually write your essay yourself or show your work because ChatGPT or AI can do it for you, that takes away some really important lessons in growth, right? I like to tell people I've written 7 books and sold 8 because no one buys them. And I'm not saying go buy them. I'm saying, but the process I have learned from having to write a book and put my thoughts down on paper and then rewrite them and have to edit them and have people critique them. And it really helped me grow as a human being and helped me really clarify my thoughts. So when you don't have to do that and you just push a button and GPT wrote your book with your quick little prompt, you're not really an author. All those the songs, all those albums, like the hours I spent with my writing partners writing the songs and trying to get the right word in, the right message in, and get it done in such a way that we thought the hook would be there and we're going to get people's attention. That's amazing time spent in learning, right? And if you just push a button and all of a sudden a song comes out, you're not really a songwriter. And what I worry about is that adults and kids are going to forget how to do the things that are really important and not stress themselves, and that all that time you spent learning and doing the work is going to be taken away because ChatGPT does it for you, or any AI model does it for you. And then the bigger stuff that I worry about, and this is what this part of this movie is going to be about, is just the whole idea that, chatbots as friends and chatbots as boyfriends and girlfriends, as confidants, as therapists, is becoming a big thing with adults and kids. And when you have, I've got a friend who's got a 9-year-old son, and he's like, he spends more time talking to his chatbot friend than he does with his family and his friends. Now imagine when he's got a chatbot girlfriend who only says nice things to him and tells him how wonderful he is, right? Because that's not the real world, but that's the world what kids are heading into. So this movie is meant to, and by the way, there's a lot of amazing things in AI. It supercharges my life and allows me to do so many things faster and better and learn so much, right? So I'm not an anti-AI guy. What I am is worried about if we don't do it in moderation and we don't teach our kids how to use it and keep it as part of their life, but not their entire life, and not take the easy way out, what happens to them, right? What happens when we have a generation growing up that doesn't have to fail at things because it's so easy to succeed, but they didn't really succeed? The computer did it for them. The AI did it for them. What happens when we've lost our communication, our ability to communicate with others because we spend so much time in the AI world and being told how wonderful we are by a computer? And those are the things that's where, raising kids your age, like your kids' age, that's the stuff that I want to pay attention to, right? What jobs are they really going to have, and what's their life going to look like in 10, 15 years? And that's the stuff we need to start paying attention for, because when we lose our purpose in life, that's when our mental health really goes down dramatically. And I want to make sure that we're paying attention to it now, and parents are thinking about how AI is going to affect their kids and how much time they allow them to spend in that world, and how they have to learn and actually do their work and show their work and not just push a button and get their work done. That's what I'm working on next.
That's something that I imagine all listeners, all parents, all people are just keen to know more about. And I think you're absolutely right. There's so many skills that we just will miss out on if we just let ChatGPT or whatever program do it for us. And as adults, I can see those skills disappearing, but at least we've honed them over the years of becoming adults. But with kids, if they start doing that before they even work on their critical thinking skills, for example,
Yeah.
they will never develop them, will they?
Well, you're the doctor. I'm just, just my opinion, but I spend a lot of time, studying this stuff, and it scares me. It scares me. I mean,
And when do you see that this documentary will be out? Because I'm keen to watch it.
we're starting to work on it now, and it'll probably be out by March. So we move pretty quickly. I've got my own production team and my own production company, and we don't have to wait around for people. We can just move, which is nice.
And how do people find your, like all of the different documentaries that you've done? I know you mentioned that one of them was on Amazon Prime at the moment. Where do we find the other ones?
So if you go to tellmystory.org, everything I've done is there. The TED Talks are there. Um, Probably a good place to start is the TED Talk called the Hot Lava Talk, that talks about me comparing my life growing up to Ryan's life growing up and kids these days versus when I was a kid. That's a good place, just a primer for who, you can hear a little bit about me. And the other TED Talks are there. The Goldcast is there. The movie What I Wish My Parents Knew, we'd love you to help us put it into schools. It's free to schools. I fund this all myself. And basically we have programs where it's a program in a school where you come in and you watch, parents will watch What I Wish My Parents Knew for a half hour and have a conversation with a mental health, with a therapist, mental health professional, to talk about what their kids are going through. Shift is a movie that's for parents, but it's also mainly for kids. It's going into schools as a program for assemblies and classrooms where you can, kids will hear these kids going in doing amazing things in their lives and trying things, and then we have a workbook that goes along for a conversation afterwards. All this is completely free to schools. I just need parents' help to get us into those schools. The schools are very busy and they have so many things going on. But we're putting this program into a couple hundred schools this year, as we did last year. So
And
that's our
how do
goal.
parents get involved with doing that? Like, what are the steps that they would have to take?
So if you go on to tellmystory.org and go to contact us, and my team will reach back out to you and help you set up everything in your schools.
Oh, amazing. Okay.
Yeah,
So anybody listening who, like most people, a lot of the people that listen, their kids go to school, some are homeschooling, but you could even do this in homeschooling groups, get together and listen to or watch the videos. And people on like parent teacher committees, I imagine they
mm-hmm.
could be really useful in getting these in schools as well.
Absolutely. And by the way, I'm not an anti-homeschooler either, because if I mean, the school is a tough place for kids these days. Um,
Yeah.
but there, I know there's great homeschooling groups, and you probably all have like parent groups you hang out with, and we can show that film in small groups of parents who are homeschooling in their groups too.
Yeah. Amazing. Is there anything else that you think is important for parents to know at this point in our conversation, or anything that you wanted me to ask that I didn't?
I think it's just important to realize that, I know everything I'm saying can be overwhelming, and you're going, I have my own problems, I have my own life, I'm doing my best, and all I can tell you is just keep doing your best. Right? It's like you spinning out of control because you're so worried about life and the world and AI and your kids and everything else isn't going to help your kids. So just remember to love them. Just remember to be there for them. Just remember that if you can set it up with your kids, that they know they can go talk to you about anything at any time and you're always there for them, then that's 90% of this. That's really 90% of this. And if you do that properly, then you're going to be a great parent, and you'll still make mistakes. And I still made mistakes. I'm still making mistakes. But if you can have that relationship with your kids where they know they can talk to you and they're not afraid of you and they know you love them, then that's 90% of the battle.
Yeah, that's so, so true. Well, thank you so much for coming on here and spending this time with us and for creating these documentaries and helping so many kids and parents out there. It's incredible what you're doing.
Well, I'm just trying to do my part, right? So thank you. And thank you for what you do. I
Thanks.
mean, you've done a heck of a lot of podcasts and you're doing great work in the world. So thank you.